It's July 19th, 2020. A lot has happened since the last time I filmed anything, and I didn't really want to come out and film today either, but there's so much going on, and I just want to make sure that I have some record of it. Everything's blooming really nicely in the front garden here. We are still trying to catch up from sort of things that I missed out on when I broke my wrist. So I just got my cast off on Wednesday. It is now Sunday on my left side, and then my right. I had surgery a couple of weeks ago, so my hands are free now, but they're pretty weak. And so there's a lot that I haven't been able to do in the garden. Lots of things that are kind of gone out of control. Here's the rhubarb. This was actually picked pretty much to the ground just a week or so ago. My mom was here and we made, she made three rhubarb pies. And let me go back to that. 3 rhubarb pies, and I think we got 13 pints of rhubarb jam done. Here are just a couple of rescue tomato plants we made some room for before they had to be thrown out. They're not doing great, but they're doing okay. And my okra, I have a feeling I did something wrong with these because I imagine them being a lot bigger by now. So I don't know if you've grown okra. It's mid-July. I did start these indoors, so I thought they'd be a lot bigger by now, but they're not. I think they may have gotten stunted in their cups or something. I don't know. Hi, Molly. Yeah, you can go in your pool. Yay. So we're still in the summer of COVID-19, and we do have somebody close to us who is in hospital now with coronavirus. He's somebody that my husband works with, and so we've been at home quarantining as much as possible. We'll still go, well, to the grocery store when we need to, but mostly we've been home, and so I have time to do work in the garden. But like I said, my hands just aren't working fully functional, so I haven't been able to do a lot. So my currants are still here in the garden, many of them eaten away by birds. This is actually the first year I've gotten enough currants really to do anything with, and I can't really do anything with them because of my hands. So at least they're feeding the birds. So we're going to do a full garden tour today. We'll take a look at all the flowering gardens, and then we'll go into the vegetable garden too, because a lot of stuff's happening in there that I want to see. The bleeding heart has really taken over this bed this year, so I might cut those back this fall. And these lilies, I think they were here last year, but I don't remember them being this nice. And they're really pretty. Hollyhocks are growing in really nice. I've learned that the Japanese beetles like those. Molly's little fairy garden is growing so much we can hardly tell that there's any fairies in there. Here's one. This is cute. This one. This bee balm is blowing me away. I didn't even think it was gonna survive this year. It was a trade last year somebody gave to me, and it never really came up. And then when we were redesigning the garden this year, we kept stepping on this spot where I would smell this fragrance, and I thought it was probably the bee balm. So I left that spot alone for just a week and saw some little, stuff poking up from the ground, so I took that and I just transplanted it here, hoping maybe to get some. But look at that, it's just been blowing me away this year. I love it. And we've got zinnias growing up through there too. Okay, so here is the vegetable garden. It's doing okay, considering that I haven't been able to give it a lot of attention. But there's also things I'm kind of disappointed in. So my carrots didn't do well this year. I think I just wasn't able to water them enough when they were germinating, so a lot of this is just bare ground. It was planted, you know, solid strips of carrots up to about here, and then I had some spinach in there that's already bolted, so I've pulled that out. And then my basil isn't doing real great on the deck. I can show that to you too. So I went and just bought some plants from the grocery store and I'm going to plant them down here in the ground, because I'm learning more and more now how much better plants grow in the ground than they do in pots. And so I'm hoping that will be the case for the basil too. So I've got lots of Swiss chard, but you know, it's been pretty well chomped on. I think I've got a bad slug problem this year, so I've been treating, and you know, the kale was pretty well eaten up too, but I've treated that with some just neem oil, and it really does a good job of keeping the bugs off. So I'm going to harvest some of this today. I'm going to try to make some kale chips and see if I can do that well this time. The green beans and purple pole beans are doing okay. I've had a harvest of purple beans off here already, but you can see the leaves aren't super healthy. And then on top of it, we've got these nasty Japanese beetles, and they're really eating holes in there. They're not as bad this year as they were last year, but I've been treating this pretty regularly with some neem oil too, so I think that's helping. Okay, so I've got a lot of peppers going here. And I'll see if I can see the tags. Actually, these two were seeds that my husband planted from a store-bought pepper, and he just wanted to try it. So they're growing nicely. I don't see any flowers on them at all, or any peppers. And then this plant is a fooled you jalapeno. And it's just a jalapeno plant that has no heat to it. The peppers have no heat. I did try one. I wasn't super impressed. It didn't have a lot of flavor. I mean, I'm not a heat person, so I thought this would be perfect because I like jalapenos, but I don't like the heat. So I tried it, and it was just really bland. I don't know if I'm going to be a fan of that or not. This plant is a Craig's Grande jalapeno. And so far, I really like it. We haven't used any of the peppers off it, but it's growing much more quickly and much larger than my regular jalapeno peppers. This one, let's see. This is also a Craig's Grande. This is a California Wonder bell pepper. A couple of blossoms on there, but not really any fruit yet. There's one on here. And my peppers aren't doing great this year. At least not yet, but I always have to remind myself to be patient because they do take some time. I've got pepperoncini here, and then I'm really glad to see this. This is a Lesia pepper, and it says that they are the sweetest of all the peppers, so I'm really looking forward to trying that. Here's another pepperoncini, and this is oh boy, I don't know what that is. My label wore off my rock here. I don't know what that is. It'll come to me. I've got some beets in here. This is a yum yum pepper. Oh, I think this one might be a yum yum too. And those are just the little snack multicolored peppers. My onions are doing awesome. This is actually the first year I've been able to do onions from seed and have them do well, so I'm really excited about that. Okay, what do we got here? My marker wore off this one too. I think this plant and this one are the same, and this is the Sugar Rush Peach pepper. I'm looking forward to trying these too, but I think they got a little heat to them, so I'm gonna wait until, oh yeah, this is the one, this is Sugar Rush Peach too. So I'm gonna wait until I'm in the house and can have a glass of milk if I need it. Like I said, I don't tolerate the heat and the peppers very well. Another California Wonder pepper. Here is one of my early jalapeno plants. It's doing pretty well. Got a couple of peppers on there. Another early jalapeno. And I think this is a Craig's Grande that I had on my deck for a long time and didn't have a spot for it, so I just threw it in there. Alright, so let's move over here. This is my Roma tomatoes, mostly. Okay, in the back of here, I have one plant that is called the Garden Leader Monster. It's supposed to grow some pretty big tomatoes. I had forgotten to plant these in the other bed with all the other different varieties, so it's sitting here in this, this whole bed is really sauce tomatoes. Some of my Romas are just starting to blush down here, and you'll see that these, Romas are bush tomatoes. They're determinate, and you can see that they're pretty sparse. They're looking pretty bare. I've pulled off a lot of tomatoes that were starting some blossom end rot. But they're bare because something was wrong with them. I did a previous video. There was a lot of blackening and spotting on the leaves that didn't really fit the description of like a septoria leaf spot. It didn't really fit a blight, and I couldn't really figure out what it was. I think I settled on, maybe it was a nutrient deficiency. But then later on, I thought that maybe I had burned the leaves with some insect spray or something. So anyways, I came out and I trimmed all these tomatoes up, and so that's why they're looking pretty bare. But I've got lots of tomatoes still growing on them, so hopefully, I don't know. It's disappointing to me because this is my spaghetti and salsa tomatoes, and they're just not doing well. So you can see I still have a lot of tomatoes coming. We did have about a week of super hot weather, so I lost quite a bit of flowers. With determinate varieties, you don't really get those back because these plants, they grow to a certain height, they stop growing, and then they fruit. And these aren't going to grow anymore, so I think these dead flowers are going to be a missed opportunity. So besides the Romas, I planted, I think, 17 different varieties of tomatoes so that I could try them. These are mostly new to me, and mostly they're heirlooms, but I've got a few hybrids in here too. So that's the exciting part. So let's talk about the tomato varieties that I grew and just show you how they're coming along. This first one is really cool. This is the Brad's Atomic Grape from Wild Boar Farms, and it's said to be, oh look, this one's split, but you know what, that's because I should have picked it a long time ago. It's said to be one of the most flavorful tomatoes and a bestseller, or actually the bestseller from Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds. I have tried a couple of these and they are really good. My son and I are really the only tomato eaters. Last year, I was actually the first year I could eat a tomato because I've never liked them my whole life, and I tried, I trained myself last year to eat them, and I really enjoy them now. This is a really good one. It's got really robust flavor and a good texture. I'll definitely grow these every year. The next one is a Sun Gold. I grew these last year. These were probably the tomato that that I trained myself on because they're so sweet and delicious. They're really far from that traditional tomato acidy taste, and they're very, very sweet and very just sugary. I mean, and they're so prolific. So right now we're looking, this is about chest height to me, and this plant just keeps going up. It's taller than me now, and I'm going to continue to get all of these tomatoes off here. So every day I could come down here and just eat off the garden every day when I come down. This next tomato is called a chocolate cherry, and these are also really delicious. This is the first time I've had this, and they are they're really juicy, and they have almost a blueberry-ish type flavor. I don't know if anyone else would agree with that, but I've tried it a couple times, and in comparison to the other tomatoes that I've tried so far this year, these are really, really good, and it's almost like a little bit of a blueberry aftertaste. They're really good. Those are the only tomatoes that I've been able to eat so far this year. Everything else is taking its sweet time. This one is a Cherokee Purple. I did have a Cherokee Purple last year, and I really liked it. In fact, we tried a couple of different varieties, and in my house the Cherokee Purple was the winner. So I'm looking forward to having that one again. It's a really nice, full-on, kind of robust, smoky flavored tomato. This is a Sun Sugar. So these are supposed to be almost indistinguishable from the Sun Gold. But I'm finding that I'm really liking the Sun Gold better already, even though I've never even tried this, because this plant is taking forever to produce any ripe fruit. So I'm looking forward to trying the Sun Sugar, but I have a feeling I'm just going to stick with the Sun Gold. Alright, over here I have a Mortgage Lifter. This is a new one for me. So the story behind the Mortgage Lifter is that the individual who bred this tomato back in the day had plants that were so prolific and so well producing that with his tomato sales he was able to pay off his mortgage. So I've actually planted a couple of these in my garden, and they're a pretty traditional and common heirloom tomato, and so I'm looking forward to trying that. Hi, Midgie.
Hi, reverse sea creature. I'm a mermaid, so you know, guys. So bye. Maybe you can come in the water if you watch this video.
So this one is a Big Zac, and this one has been recommended by a few people to, if you're wanting to grow a really large tomato, like for a contest or something like that, to try a Big Zac. They grow pretty huge. And these are doing well. I mean, they're a good sized tomato so far. But we'll see. I mean, this is pretty much what I have on it. A couple little ones up here. Boy, this vine is really heavy though. I better come out here and tie this up a little bit better. It looks like it's under some stress, under some weight. Okay, this is a Paul Robeson, also a pretty well-known and common heirloom tomato. These will get sort of a purpley color. This is one of the ones that was recommended to me for really great flavor. And then I'm trying a couple of different new paste tomatoes. So this one is called the Easy Sauce. So far I'm not impressed. But I had a hard time getting these started from seed. I actually lost a lot of tomato plants from seed this year, and I think it was really the planting medium that I was using, and so I'm not gonna blame the seeds just yet, the varieties just yet, but so far this easy sauce hasn't impressed me. This one has though, so this is a San Marzano. This is another one that I lost a lot of seedlings for. Again, I think it was my fault, not the variety. But these are growing some pretty big tomatoes on here, and I'm looking forward to trying them. I mean, you can see the difference in size. This is about the width of my hand versus the aromas that I've got here, which, you know, they're still pretty tiny. So the San Marzano, and it looks like these must be indeterminate because they're growing real nice and tall, and I think I'm going to get a lot of tomatoes off here. I'm going to go back over here once too, because in the back of this sauce tomato bed is my Amish paste tomato, and I think I'm going to try this one again next year too. This is one that again, I had a hard time starting from seed, but when I'm looking at these tomatoes, they're nice and big too. So I'm going to try this one again next year. These tomatoes are a nice size. Okay, so that's the first row of my try out tomatoes. I'll head out to the second row. So here I have another big Zac. It seems to be doing a little bit better than the one on the other side. Some more tomatoes on there. They're all here on the bottom though. I'm not getting a lot any higher than this, and I think that might have something to do with that hot weather we had. We again lost a lot of blossoms, unfortunately, in that hot weather. This is a mortgage lifter, same as the other side, but this was my first one to start to blush, and I think this one, man, I think that one's about right. But I guess I expected it to be a little bit more red, but feeling this, it's real squishy, so I think I better harvest that one pretty soon. This is a Kellogg's breakfast. I'm really looking forward to trying this. It's said to be one of the most flavorful tomatoes, and it's a yellow tomato variety, so I'm looking forward to trying that with you know, like tomato sandwich, like a BLT or like a caprese. I think would be really good. But again, here we see all of these fried flowers that we lost, and they're gone, they're done. We're not going to get them back. All the way up here the flowers have died, so that's really disappointing. Luckily though, I mean, my point in growing these was to try them and to test them, and I'm going to get some really good tomatoes off each plant, and so I'm going to get enough to do what I wanted to do with them. So if they're not super prolific because of the weather, then I guess that's okay, because all I really wanted to do was try them. I've got another Cherokee Purple, planted a couple of those because I know I like them. And then this is two plants that are Brandywine Red. This tomato is looking awfully orange for a red tomato. So, and it's squishy, so I don't know, maybe that's not a Brandywine Red. I did also grow some Brandywine Pink, but these don't look really very pink either, so maybe I got some labels mixed up, or maybe that is a Brandywine Red. Maybe you can tell me. So just a few tomatoes growing on this plant, unfortunately, too, but there's a couple on this one. All right, the next one is a green zebra. I've never grown a green tomato before, and so I'm looking forward to trying it. Here's one. You can see the green striping on there. There's another one back here. So far they're really pretty. I think they'll stripe up even more. This is still really firm, so I'm sure it's not even close to ready. But again, man, look at all the dead blossoms on here. It makes me really sad. Okay, so here is the Brandywine Pink. Again, Brandywines are known for having really, really good flavor. And they're old, you know, they're a common go-to heirloom tomato that a lot of people grow and a lot of people love. The Brandywine Pink is they say, I haven't tried it, is like the Brandywine Red. It's delicious tomato, but the flavor is a little bit less intense, a little bit more mild. Okay, and then the last 3 tomatoes in this roll are all Amish paste, and like I said, I'm liking these. They're growing some nice size paste tomatoes, so I'm gonna definitely try those again. All right, let's head back to the next row. I have a volunteer kale plant. Actually, I think I planted this here last year and it didn't do very well. And now this year it's come up on its own and doing fine. All right, so this is actually my favorite part of the garden this year, and this is where I've got all my vines growing. It's doing really well. I'm impressed. I'm loving the cattle panels set up in this way. So let's take a look through. We'll start on this side. This is my Minnesota Midget melon. I tried these last year, but I was running out of space, so it had kind of a shady little spot. And I planted it late in the season. This year I started them in the house from seed, and it's doing really well. This is one of the melons that's growing here. It's about, about the size of my fist, a little bit bigger, maybe the size of a softball. And these, this is sitting on something that's called a rot knot. It's just a little almost stool for your fruits to sit on so that they don't have to sit on the ground and rot. The thing is, oh, and let me just say, this was a gift from a friend of my husband's who sent that to us when she heard that I broke my wrist. So that was really sweet. I've never even met her, and it was just amazing that she thought of us in that way. But so this particular melon, I can read up more on it, but what I've read is when it falls off the vine, it's ready. Well, it's laying on the ground, so I don't know if I'm going to see it fall off the vine. There's some more melons coming in here. I think this is going to be a fun one. I think my family's really going to like this one. I thought there was an even bigger one growing back here. So that one's doing well. Over here I had planted a straight 8 and a sweet success cucumber, and they're just whoa, that one got a little out of control, but they're just not doing very well. I think partially, I don't know, they were last year's seeds, so I don't know if that had something to do with it, but they're really just taking up space in my garden and not doing great. So I've started some new cucumbers from seeds. They're up on the deck, and as soon as they're ready, I'm going to take these out and I'm going to replace them with the new pickling cucumbers, which have been doing great. So on this trellis, we have actually 2 varieties of cucumbers. On this side is a Miss Pickler, and this is a all-female flowered plant. And so the idea is that it's sort of self-pollinating, and every flower should produce fruit. It's doing fine, but it's hard to tell because I've got the Chicago pickling cucumber right next to it, and I wasn't able to keep them trained separately, so I don't know which is which when I'm looking at these. If I look at it from a distance, it sort of looks like the Miss Pickler's not doing very well. The side of the trellis is bare, but really I think mostly it just grew up into that one. And so I can tell, I think this one is one of the Chicago pickling cucumbers because it's got the black spines on it. But other than that, I don't know which plant is which. And these need to be harvested. These are getting too big. So I'll have to come back out and harvest these and make some pickles. Alright, so this one is really fun. This is called the kabocha squash. And these are, they're called a Asian pumpkin, and they're a squash really that you you can cut open and eat just like any other squash. And then there's seeds inside too that you can bake to become like pumpkin seeds. So these have been really early for me, and it's doing really well, and so I'm looking forward to them. They'll actually turn a dark green, and it'll get kind of bumpy and pocky before it's ready to harvest. So although they're here and they're doing really well, it's going to be quite some time, I think, before I get any squash off them. And I think it's grown over there too, because on this side of the trellis I planted an argonaut squash, which is a butternut squash that's just bigger and meatier, and I haven't seen any of those grow yet, which is fine. Last year my butternuts took a really long time too. I actually bet this is probably one way over here in the front. So I think these two vines have just crossed over quite a bit, and I can't tell which is which anymore, but I think it's cool, these squashes, how different they're changing colors as they grow. I had this little borage plant, and I love borage, and it does such a great job of bringing the pollinators in, but it ends up taking up so much space in the garden that at first I couldn't figure out where to put it. Well, so I just stuck it back here behind the asparagus, but then the asparagus got kind of out of control, so I put that fence up to keep it back a little bit. On this side in the back I have just some regular Waltham butternut squash, and those are the same ones I planted last year. They took a really long time to develop, and so I'm not worried about them not having any fruit yet, but I didn't get a lot from the vines. I think I might have lost a couple of them, so we'll see what ends up coming from that. This plant is a Kajari melon, and I haven't had these before either, but I'm really looking forward to them, and it looks like I'm going to have quite a few of them. And these are just little Indian melons. They're probably about, fist size. They're not big sharing melons, but rather a little bit more personal size melons. So I'm looking forward to trying those too. Looks like they're doing pretty well, and they turn kind of multicolor, orange and yellowish and greenish. Okay, so here I have another two varieties of cucumbers. On that side is a Boston pickling cucumber, and then on this side is a gherkin hybrid. I really think that gherkin is going to be my go-to forever forward, because that cucumber plant produced so much so quickly that that I'm just really impressed with it, and we're getting some really good pickles out of it. I can see, it's time to come out here and harvest these. And I just was out here yesterday and I trimmed up all the dead leaves, on the bottom, so you can see how bare that looks. But those are doing really well. On this side is the Boston pickling cucumber. Those are good too, but again, they're crisscrossing on this trellis, so I'm not sure which is which, and I'm not going to be able to kind of taste test them either to find out which ones make the best pickles. So definitely I'll grow the gherkin next year. Maybe I'll just narrow it down to two varieties, or plant them a little bit more separately next year so I can try them and taste test them and see what I like the best. Okay, my dill is finally taking off. I've had lots of cucumbers already, but I didn't have any dill, so I'm happy to see that finally coming in. These, oh my gosh, this mess of vines, these are Mexican sour gherkin cucumbers, or cucamelons. They are tiny little cucumbers that look like watermelons, tiny watermelons, and I didn't think these plants were gonna make it when I planted them. They were just, these tiny thin little vines, and they looked just so frail, and there was just a couple of them, and I thought, well, I'm not gonna have any of those this year. Maybe I should think about planting something else there. But guys, look at this. It is taking over everything. This little cucamelon vine is just choking out the dill. It's growing all up in here. I don't mind it. I'll probably grow it again, but I'm just so surprised how much that took off. And there's lots of them. So I've told the neighbor kids if they see some on their side of the fence and want to just help themselves, they're welcome to them. But what I'd like to do actually is to try to get a jar of them and see what happens if I pickle them. I'm sure they probably just turn to mush, but it'd be worth trying. So here's the dill doing really well. More of these cucamelons just growing along this fence. We'll see. I mean, maybe they'll become a problem this year. It could be. It could be that they just take over and I don't want them anymore. But I also think there's probably so many of these little melons that even if I said I didn't want them anymore, I bet they'd volunteer next year. So that's the vegetable garden. There's there's one more. Well, actually, let's take a look over here. Yep, one of my other lessons learned this year is just, this is a kale plant similar to my other kale plants that are probably 5 times this size. Just another, proof that really, if we can plant them in the ground, we should, because I put this here because all the kids in the neighborhood like to eat the kale, but I've got the garden all closed up and they couldn't get to it. So I was going to plant them their own, but this kale in a pot just isn't happy here. It's not doing well. So again, they're just going to go in the ground from now on. This potato plant is probably about ready to harvest, and I've got three more bags of potatoes still going strong. So this little empty bed was a last-ditch effort to try to grow some extra dill. And I planted 3 different varieties in here just to kind of test them out. This spot doesn't get a ton of sun, but it seems like it's getting enough that I'm going to have some dill. So we'll see how this goes. I'm hoping, if this does well, maybe this will be my dill spot from here on out, because boy, am I tired of searching for dill all the time when I need to pickle some cucumbers. And this is the other thing I wanted to show you. We had dug up a spot in the backyard where our lilacs used to be, and they were in rocks similar to this. And then last year I had just planted a couple of tomato plants there that I didn't have room for. Well, this spring my husband finally finished digging all that out, and the last of the rocks were really this just dirty rocks, mostly dirt, not a lot of rocks. And he dumped it here in the back of the driveway until we could figure out what we're going to do with it. But it's full of tomato plants. So as badly as he would like to clean this up, I've asked him to leave them because those tomato plants are looking kind of nice. So we're going to leave those there. So let's look at what we got going on the deck. We really live on the deck in the summer, so it's full right now. I've got a couple of different varieties of ground cherries growing. One's a Not Molly, one's just a pineapple, and there's one that was just labeled ground cherry, so I don't know what the difference is, but we're going to try them out. I've got another Brad's Atomic Grape growing up here on the deck, which will be fun. Just come out here and grab another Sun Sugar. And then here's my grow tower. It was doing really well. It started to really have some problems. I just haven't been able to take care of it. I tried growing some beans on the bottom, but they just didn't do well at all. And then today, last couple of days, we've been expecting some rain and hardly getting any. And so this has needed some watering. I've got some lavender in here, some stevia. My basil really took a hit all of a sudden, just got all kind of moldy and yucky on the leaves, and so I'm gonna have to pull those out. That's why I went and bought some new ones from the store. Parsley's been awesome. I've already dried a batch of that. And then I've got some oregano going, and we'll use that in our spaghetti sauce. And these are really pretty. I'm digging the flowers on here. Boy, none of this looks really good because it needs some water, but this mint has just taken over this level, and so I don't know if I'll put mint in here again because it's just coming out even from other pockets. It's growing underneath and back out. It smells really great and is doing really well, but I just don't have a lot of use for mint. This is a curly basil I just bought from the store. Chives are doing really well this year. We've used it a little bit. And I've got some rosemary growing in here. Got one more ground cherry here and some lemon balm. Here's my second round of pickling cucumbers, all planted up. And then that one is a sun sugar tomato plant. So I'm looking forward to seeing those. So that's everything. We've been really busy this summer and also not really busy since there's not a lot I can do with my hands yet. But I wanted to get everything filmed before everything was starting to die off. We're kind of midsummer here, so the garden changes really quickly this time of year. That's it. Thanks for joining me today. See you next time.
I gotta get some chairs.